praise your holiness. Through this webinar, we thank thee for equipping our organizers, presenters, moderator, hosts, and all participants with the willingness to share learning and skills also that further our services to the various parts of humanity that you assign us. We pray that you keep your guiding light upon us throughout this session so that we are able to actually proceed with your wisdom and your will. We pray in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Greetings and a warm welcome to all of you to our webinar on Action Research in Action. Many thanks to our resource professionals for sharing their expertise tonight. They really are the frontline sponsors of this webinar. To my co-organizers, especially to Dr. Dave Marshall, who has been side by side with me throughout the technological preparations for this session. Thank you. We have some rules to be mindful about so that each one of us can contribute to the success of this webinar. Please mute your microphones and listen to the lectures. We will learn mainly by active listening. Time is of the essence. Raising of hands will not be beneficial to our limited time of 3 hours only. Please use only the chat board for your interactions with other participants. Any questions on content, please also use the chat board and remember to specify the name of the presenter you want to respond to your question. The moderator has the prerogative to pull similar questions. Responses will be sent to you via email, so please write your email address right after your question. We will appreciate it if you also include your complete name beside it, hoping that that is fine with you. We do have a 30-minute interaction time, during which 3 questions will be chosen from the chat board randomly. Please respond to the evaluation form. It's very brief. Announcement about certificates will be given later. Please be courteous and thankful of the precious time our experts are sharing with us. And we also thank you very much for helping us make this webinar happen. At this point, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you our 2 lovely hosts, Dr. Lian and Dr. Elve.
Hello.
Dr. Lian is an expert on early childhood education and teacher education. Dr. Lian is currently teaching online at Macquarie University and the Edith Cowan University, both in Australia. Dr. Elve is the chairperson of the Teacher Education Department of Silliman University Center of Excellence in Dumaguete City, Philippines. Lian, Elve,
Thank you.
We are all yours now.
Thank you, Dr. Alice.
Thank you, Dr. Alice, for that kind introduction. Lian.
Yes, that was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, our first presenter this evening, delivering opening remarks, is Dr. Erlinda Kalumpang. She received both her Masters of Arts in Education and Doctor of Education from Foundation University. As a college instructor and later English secondary school teacher, Dr. Kalumpang extended this specialization in her role as principal at 2 well-established high schools in Negros Oriental. With a central focus on leadership, responsibilities included policy formation and implementation, curriculum programming and planning, performance evaluation and finance management, along with developing programs for teachers' continuing professional development. After several years in this role, Dr. Kalumpang began working as an English program supervisor for the Department of Education, providing technical assistance for teachers and school heads, including training and evaluation of assessment processes as they relate to English as a learning area. This also involves orienting and deploying student teachers and managing library hub resources. Assistance was also provided to provide schools opening and renewing of operating permits from preschool to secondary levels of education. In her current role as Chief Education Program Supervisor for the Department of Education, Dr. Kalompang heads the Curriculum Implementation Division of Negros Oriental. She manages the implementation of the basic education curriculum and the special curriculum programs in schools and in learning centres. She also takes the lead in providing technical assistance to schools and learning centres in analysing assessment results for possible intervention. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Kalompang.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Lian, for the very beautiful introduction. It is indeed a privilege to give these opening remarks to this webinar entitled Action in Action, and I am pleased to welcome you all. Ladies and friends, this current global health crisis is an unprecedented wake-up call that is showing us how crucial for schools, organizations, and even different countries to collaborate and come together for a
I think Dr. Kalumpang has problem with her internet connectivity.
That is very possible because she just said a while ago that she had to move to the garage in order to get some signal. She might be back on.
She's here. Okay.
Thank
Please
you.
go
Can you hear me? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay,
No
so
problem.
okay, so I think I ended up saying that I wanted to say thank you to the lady who had thought of coming up with this webinar, the woman who took the lead in making all this possible. And I am referring to our very own Dr. Alice Fe Lavinia. This webinar, Action Research in Action, is a product of collaboration among the Negros Oriental Private Schools Organization, or the NOPSO, the Silliman Online University Learning, the SOL, the Negros Island Teacher Education, the NIGHT, the Philippine-Kenya Education Network, the PEN, and the Korea Council of Overseas Schools, CORSOS. In attendance to this webinar are both teachers and students from the different schools, colleges, and universities in Dumaguete City, some parts of Negros Oriental, and from other parts of the world, with special mention, Kenya. The purpose of this webinar is to reach out to as many participants in the learning and sharing of action research skills that are adaptive to the unique conditions of the pandemic time. This webinar is an opportunity for all of us, both the teachers and the students, especially those from the teacher education institutions, as we are all aware that the unnumbered joint CHED and DepEd Memorandum Series of 2020, entitled New Normal Policies and Guidelines on the Deployment of Pre-Service Teachers for Field Study and Teaching Internship for Academic Year 2020-2021 enumerated, among others, some adjustments on the tasks to be performed by the field study students and the practice teachers, one of which is the preparation of the classroom action-based researches, or the CBARS. This unnumbered joint CHED DepEd memorandum provided that field study students are expected to do professional readings on different classroom-based action researches related to teaching, learning processes, and prepare reflection papers on the studied CBARS. On the other hand, student teaching interns are also expected to conduct classroom-based action researches on specific teaching learning area and share the results of the research with an audience through any platform. This afternoon, it is the hope of the organizers that we all take advantage of this chance to learn because we have the best speakers pulled together for this purpose. So please sit back, relax, and let us enjoy learning together. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and may God bless us all.
Oh, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much, Dr. Erlene, for that very warm welcome for everybody, especially to our participants and organizers. So today I'm tasked to introduce our presenter, and our first presenter was formerly a university graduate program dean and concurrently a professor of the Department of Sociology and Anthropology and a director of the Research and Development Center of Silliman University, Dumaguete City, Negros Oriental. It was also from Silliman University that he earned his Bachelor and Master of Arts degrees, major in sociology. He completed his Doctor of Philosophy major in anthropology from the University of San Carlos in Cebu City. He was a visiting scholar at the University of Washington in Seattle, USA in 2001, a United Board for Christian Higher Education in Asia Fellow assigned at the Chinese University of Hong Kong in 2011 and Baylor University, Texas, USA in 2012. His disciplinary interest is in environmental anthropology. Among his several consultancy works included the following: institutional and socioeconomic specialist, organizational development program leader of Silliman University Commission on Higher Education, Philippine Higher Education Network for Integrated Research Programs, social science study leader and specialist, and his latest consultancy work as social science specialist of Silliman University South Negros B4 USAID Fish Ripe Program from 2018 up to the present. He is a regular member of the National Research Council of the Philippines in the Social Science Division. He was a president of the Ugnayang Pangagham Tao, former vice president of the Visayas, and board member of Philippine Sociological Society. He represented Silliman University in the Central Visayas Consortium for Health Research and Development, or CVC-HRD, and is a member of its Technical Review Board and Research and Development Committee. Aside from his numerous paper presentations in national and international conferences, he had also published 43 single-authored journal articles and chapters of books, and 24 co-authored articles. He was a recipient of the Research and Publication Republica Awards of CHED in the social sciences at the regional level in 2005. Because of his accomplishments in research and publications, he was constantly awarded as one of the 10 most productive faculty of Silliman University, given every 5 years. Today, he will present a paper on making action research responsive to educational needs and conditions. Let's give a warm virtual applause for our presenter today, Dr. Enrique G. Oracion. Dr. Ike, The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. LB and Dr. Lian. Good afternoon, everyone. It has been my pleasure to be part of this webinar, which I think would be very useful and relevant to our colleagues in the educational field. So, my presentation is on making action research responsive to educational needs and conditions. Let, let us first define, or let's review what we know about uh, action research, so we could have a frame of reference on how we're going to proceed with this. There are key points when we talk about action research. It is a disciplined or a rigid process of simultaneously um, engaging in action and doing research to address a problem. And it is going to be an empowering experience that allows researchers who are also teachers to have a better grasp of a problem and for them to be able to design innovation, to engage in active research, and to contribute to the body of knowledge. And then, because of this, the research that they would undertake could be either done by a lone teacher, or it's going to be a group of teachers who shared a common problem. And finally, because of action research, it's going to promote the idea of having evidence-based school and classroom management decision making, as well as of planning of activities. So those are the very important elements, I think, of action research. But then when we talk about action research as problem driven, we have to distinguish two kinds of problem: the problem per se and the research problem. So, what is a problem per se? Now, this is any kind of phenomenon that causes trouble or a breakdown in the normal process, and it is something that shows a gap between what is ideal and what actually is happening, and the aim therefore is to bridge the gap so that that problem would be resolved, and this is also known as a practical problem. On the other hand, the research problem may be the gap in knowledge, and the aim is to provide answers to some questions bothering us, which may be able also to address the practical problem, and we call this one theoretical problem. What is very interesting here is that in action research, we're actually doing or dealing with both practical and theoretical problems. And this would then differentiate action research from basic research, which is often conducted for the sake of knowledge that it's going to generate. But in the case of action research, it's really directed to solve this practical problem. So I'm showing here the situation right now. Uh, in terms of the delivery of learning to the learners at different levels, I think the pandemic has really made a very negative uh, impact on what's supposed to be our expected learning processes. So the practical problem here is how the pandemic have have made schooling difficult to pursue, and it also shows some of the failures of Philippine education. And perhaps we could say that the pandemic has exposed some of these issues that may be something which we could also um, uh, met in the future if we have another situation like this where we have disasters. The theoretical problem related to this pandemic is on the effect of the coronavirus on students and on their learning process, as well as on their academic and mental well-being. So you notice then that the practical problem somehow generates theoretical problem. And if you're going to answer or provide answers to the theoretical problem, that somehow would help us address the practical problem. So this example I'm showing right now is really true to what is happening today during this pandemic. If we are going to use action research in investigating learning delivery, these are the following domains that we have to consider: performance, process, weaknesses, and deficiencies. So in this case, if our interest or our focus is on performance, we may be able to uncover what are some of the ways by which our students or learners perform in their self-learning modules. That would be one. Or it could be how a certain school perform in response to the pandemic, which had curtailed the normal processes of learning and teaching. And that would lead then to the next domain, which is the process. And our example here would be the slow completion of learning tasks and the delayed submission of self-learning modules. That is one area, I think, that requires a systematic examination, and that's and the domain of process. The other domain, which is weaknesses, may be exemplified by the condition right now that some some of our young learners are not able to produce quality works because of poor comprehensions and writing skills, more so that the physical presence of teachers are not available to them, and uh, their immediate help may be coming from their parents, who might be very busy also doing their works, or with someone else. It is something also very difficult for poor parents who have difficulty in assisting their children. And that would lead us to the next domain, which is deficiencies. Despite of the effort of having online learning, the erratic internet connection is often affecting the way that we deliver uh, online distance learning. So I'm showing you here the four domains by which we could possibly examine uh, the practical problems in learning delivery, which action research may be able to address. Relative to that would be the theoretical problems in education research. And what I'm presenting here as possible topics are just examples of what theoretical problems action researchers may pursue. For example, looking into the adaptive strategies in performing tasks in online or modular learning modalities, or another way would be to examine the modes of family interventions on task performance of learners in self-learning module, which I had mentioned earlier. The this may differ depending on the social class background of the families. I have a very specific example here about fishing involvement, but this may be taken also as any kind of work involvement and the task performance of children on a particular topics they have in school. And in this case, my example is on right fishing self-learning modules. If the household is involved in fishing, may that also uh, determine or influence the way they would perform in the right phishing self-learning modules. The other possible topic would be on the examination of how demographic factors may influence task performance in self-learning modules. So these are theoretical problems, and you will notice the difference with the practical problems. The practical problems would lead us to develop or examine some theoretical problems which we are going to research on. And uh, as we go on the process and have answers to these theoretical problems, this may be able to address the practical problems. So how is that possible then? Let's examine this. Uh, it's a common view that action research is cyclical. It's cyclical and follows 6 steps. First is the identification of the problem. And I'm referring here to the practical problem and the theoretical problem. In doing so, however, we have to be cautious that the kind of problem we identify should be within our sphere of influence. And that means we are able perhaps to address this, and therefore it is worthy of our time and effort. And more importantly, we have interest on this. Then the next step would be the gathering of data. And we're talking here of those data that are relevant to answer the problem that we have identified. And there are various ways of doing so, but I cannot describe them here. But you have to take note that the way we gather the data is certainly influenced by the kind of problem that we are going to address. Then after we have the data, we go to the interpretation of the data. And depending again on the research problem, it may be qualitative or quantitative. But in this case, my example is on doing analysis statistically to determine some patterns and trends on the data available and how it's going to uh, provide answers to the problem. The next step is on acting on the evidence available based on the results of the study. So, what is it that we could possibly decide on what actions to take so that we are able to answer the theoretical problem and eventually the practical problem. The next step is evaluating the results. Uh, we refer here to the interventions that is being introduced, and the intention here is to assess whether there is an improvement or not in the introduction of a possible intervention. So we are looking for change as a result of this intervention. And finally, the last step is the identification of new issues that possibly comes out from our introduction of an intervention. And this requires additional improvements. Now, you might think that that's the end of it, no? But actually, another perspective is to see action research as spiral. What is meant here is that after the first cycle has been completed, it might perhaps create another problem, or we might be able to identify another problem, and that requires another process of doing the investigation until finally we're able to address all those complexities of issues. So there are two perspectives then in doing action research. Looking at it as a cyclical process, so it ends after the first cycle, or the first cycle would continue and lead to another cycle because of additional questions or additional problems coming out. So how do we do that? In any research, we always have a plan, and the plan, therefore, is the proposal. And I'm showing you here the format. In the Philippines, the Department of Education have set a guide on what should be included in the formulation of a proposal for action research. So we have here introduction, the research problem, research methods, participants, the data gathering methods and data analysis, which are under research methods, and then the work plan and timelines, the cost estimates, plans for dissemination and utilization, and then, of course, the references cited. I'm going to discuss each of those sections in the next slides. So, the rationale is under introduction, and the rationale contains the context, the nature, extent, and salience of the identified practical problem uh, or issue has to be discussed in this section. So it's providing us the reason why we are doing this kind of research. And based on our review of related literature, we might be able to distinguish or identify possible intervention. And we are supposed to describe here that kind of intervention, innovation, or strategy that is supposed to address the practical problem. And in this section, then, that we would be able to identify the theoretical problem. And depending on what data is available, if we need a new set of data, perhaps this section contains what we call the gathering of baseline information, so we could be able to propose some kind of intervention. But if there are already identified possible intervention or innovation, then it has to be discussed in this section. And so that we would be able then to really identify what is our research problem. What is it that we are going to address or to answer? So take note that in the context, we had introduced the practical problem, and then we had introduced also the possible interventions and innovations or strategy. In this section, more or less, we are presenting the theoretical problem. And I have here an example or an illustration on how the two are related, the practical problem and the theoretical problem. So our practical problem is the deteriorating learning quality during the pandemic. And then below that is, of course, the uh, the ways we are we are addressing that. And this is through the different teaching learning modalities that we have. In the Philippines, we have several, but I only identified for purposes of illustration, online, modular, and blended. In other countries, they may have a different teaching learning modalities. So in this particular case, for the sake of having an illustration, uh, this these three forms of teaching learning modalities hopefully may be able to address some of the problems of the deteriorating learning quality during the pandemic. And these are to be investigated if they are going to affect quality of task performance. So in this illustration, we have practical problem, theoretical problem on the other side, showing how the two are actually being designed all along together. So this is my example. So this is a research problem, an example. What technical learning modality produces quality task performance of young learners in Science 5 during this time of the pandemic when face-to-face instruction is disallowed? In this example, I provided already the context. That is when face-to-face instruction is disallowed. And the focus here is among the young learners in Science 5. And we are going to look into what teaching learning modality would be able to produce quality performance among our uh, learners. So the specific questions are this. What is the quality of task performance of young learners in the three teaching learning modalities such as online, modular, and blended? And then to see if there are differences, the next question would be, are there significant differences in the task performance of young learners among the three teaching learning modalities? The objective, therefore, is to, to know which of these modalities that would at least provide good or quality learning to our learners at this time of the pandemic. Is going to be designed yet in a way that this could be measured. So let me go to the next step, the research methods. So based on the problems, then we have to think about the methods of gathering the data. That method that would exactly give us the kind of data we need so we could provide answers to the theoretical problem and eventually to the practical problem. So the first in this section are the participants. Who are the participants? So we have to describe who are the participants and the other sources of data. And in doing so, we need to have a clear reasons for including them in the study. In the example I have earlier, it's about Science 5 learners. So this would be our study participants. But then how are we going to gather the data? It is now discussed in the next steps, the gathering of data. So what method should be used? So again, we have to provide the reasons or the rationale for choosing this kind of method, and the kind of method we're going to use should always be aligned to the research problem or questions. So we would be able then to exactly get that kind of data we need to answer the research problem. Then we go to the data analysis plan. How are we going to analyze the data after we have done the gathering of it, of those informations? There are two things to consider here. The plan must address the research problem, and then the analysis must be appropriate to the nature of data. Very simple, but I don't have to go to the details of this also. This is now in the statistics, but you can do also qualitative analysis if your kind of data that you have gathered is qualitative in nature. But in this case, since it's quantitative, the use of statistics may be described into three types: the descriptive, comparative, and correlational. And that depends on the kind of research problem we have. In our case, I think in the example I gave earlier, uh, it could be comparative, comparing three groups of Science 5 learners according to the kind of learning modalities that they were exposed to. So it could be comparative. So we have three sections, and then we compare on how they perform the task. But then that variable task performance have also to be uh, qualified and then quantified, and what are those variables that need to be measured. And we have here the specific kind of statistics to be used also. Uh, the decision to use this kind of statistics is certainly determined or guided by the scale of the data. If it is categorical, it's nominal, or if it's going to be ranking, then ordinal, and then if you have scores and units of measures, it's going to be interval. So as I've said, I don't have to go through the details of that. If you're going to go into this, then perhaps you have to consult a statistician. Okay, so you have the plan now for data analysis. So somehow you're done with that part. You have identified the problem. You have introduced or describe what kind of intervention you are going to have, and then how you're going to do it, and how you're going to gather the data, and how you're going to analyze the data. The next question now is, how are you going to do everything? We need to have a plan. So you have to have a work plan and timeline. So I'm showing you here an example of it. No? So we have to show the periodic activities to be undertaken, and we have to list down the objectives and the corresponding activities and schedules so that we will be guided exactly when to start and when to end. And the Gantt chart is a very useful tool for this. Correspondingly, all these activities requires resources, or perhaps you would be hiring some people. No? So we have to have cost estimates as well, which will have the list of particular items needed and the corresponding cost per item. Next to that, and that would be the this would be the end of the proposal, is the plans for dissemination and utilization. What are we going to do with the data after? Are we going to share this? So when you're going to share this, at what venue, what medium, and the purpose of sharing is anchored on the idea that when we do research, it's because we would like to disseminate and share this knowledge that we have obtained. Research without sharing becomes a useless exercise. Research is always expected to be shared. It may be shared in the school among colleagues so that they would also appreciate what we are doing and would understand the value of it and perhaps implement the findings in their own setting. In this case, for example, we may share this result to the office of the district supervisor or the superintendent of schools. In the Philippines, we have that kind of structure. And then based on the results, it might be replicated in other areas. So finally, we will be able to establish really that one of these modalities may be the best option, given the economics, given the impact of learning, and given the feasibility of doing this. So finally, don't forget, we always have to have our references. Why do we have to have those references? Because there's a section in the proposal where we have we have the review of related literature, uh, of what possible interventions that we are going to use based on existing or past studies. Okay, so that's it. And I hope you're able, in a very capsulized way, I was able then to share to you how relevant is or how important is action research at this time of the pandemic or in any time that we have problems in the delivery of learning to our learners. And I have shown to you then that we just don't have to make decisions without any basis. So action research may provide us the science or the evidence for introducing something new or to innovate on something, particularly when we're going to share this to many. So thank you very much for listening. I hope then you get something. Then I'll be more excited to answer some of your questions later. Thank you. Doc Elves, thank you very much.
Yeah, Lian.
Right, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Xiong, for your presentation. I think what has really struck me about this is your very clear outlining of the various processes that we need to consider when we're developing action research. In particular, I like how you were describing to be very specific about our question or our problem and how we will think about how is it contextually relevant, particularly when we're talking about our audiences from many different contexts. So that's really key in all the decisions that you were focusing on. So, okay, so what is a relevant question? How am I going to do it? How am I going to gather? Why am I gathering this kind of information? So to provoke our thinking about these very key aspects, I think is wonderful to get us really focused in how to effectively approach action research. So thank you so much. Okay, so moving on. Our next presenter is Dr. Solomon Diaz. And he is originally from Brazil and he's been living overseas for almost 25 years. He received his master's degree in international education in the USA and a PhD in international relations with a specialization in Korean studies from Hanyang University in South Korea, where he has lived for almost 2 decades. His master's thesis was based on the Korean model of education and development. His doctoral dissertation had as a central theme international cooperation with a comparative study between Mercosur and ASEAN. As a university professor, Dr. Diaz taught at several universities such as Johns Hopkins, Princeton, and Loyola Marymount in the US, and Konkyi, Hanguk University of Foreign Studies, and Konkyi University in South Korea, in the areas of introduction to international relations, international labor market, international politics, international human rights, and ethics in Asian politics. After teaching at several Korean schools and universities, he is currently the Director of Alumni and International Relations at Chadwick International. Dr. Diaz currently chairs the Korean Council for International Schools, known as Caucus, which is the oldest association of international professional educators in Korea. He is also the founder and president of the Songdo Free Zone Foreign Advisory Council, founder and president of the Seoul Honorary Citizens Council, founder and president of the Brazil-Korea Association, and member of the Academy of Social Sciences Brazil. Dr. Diaz also co-wrote a series of 4 volumes entitled Lessons on the Other Side, based on his daily letters to his mother, written for almost 2 decades, with recounts of his many trips around the world, mainly in not so well-known countries such as North Korea, Kazakhstan, Armenia, Georgia, and Ethiopia, to name but a few. Dr. Diaz's presentation today is titled Responses of International Youth Groups to Challenges Imposed by COVID-19 on Their Lifestyle and their Learning and Lifestyle. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Diaz. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for the introduction. It's like we spend more time on the introduction than my presentation. It's beautiful. It's a long one, but it's just to say that I've been studying a lot about many different things, and I think that's how the more we learn, the more we realize how much we do have to learn more, right? To understand better how cultures and societies operate in different ways. So I believe that one of the greatest achievements that I've had, and thank you, Leanne, for highlighting all those, but it's the fact that I've realized how much more I need to learn. So I better contribute to my country, to my society, and to where I am. So it's just such a privilege to be able to share a little bit of my knowledge and my experience, but also to learn from each other. And I think the most beautiful part of a seminar, a conference like this, is the fact that we learn from each other, that we share a little bit of what we know. And at the end of the day, for the audience, is just a chance to hear from different people, different opinions, and how much more we can collaborate. So I think this is the beauty of an event like this. I'm aware of time, and after a long introduction, I don't want to spend much time talking about myself. And I appreciate, Leanne, for all the detailed information you provided. The topic of my presentation is really focused on, and let me see if I can share here the screen of my computer. It says who can share, only hosts, so probably not. Maybe I can. I will try. Let's see. It doesn't seem to be possible, but that's fine. If perhaps you can If you can see me, I think that's probably enough. But if I can share my screen, I don't know if I can. Probably I can't. Anyway, let me know if whoever is on the back side of this of the technical portion of it. But if I cannot, that's fine. We go ahead with the presentation the way I have thought. So the topic is response of international youth groups to challenges imposed by COVID-19 on their learning and lifestyle. So of course it is a topic that I think it pertains to everything we do. We all have been affected by the pandemic. I know I can share, I'm just not being able to, for whatever reason, to have access. It says only host. So I guess it's okay. We tried. I can send the presentation afterwards and probably we can make it available somewhere else. But the topic of the pandemic and how we're dealing with the pandemic and all the impacts that we all have in everything we do is absolutely important to discuss. I think that the best lesson that this crisis worldwide can leave as a legacy is the fact that we all learn from each other how to deal with all the challenges that it has imposed. I think it is affected. The virus is not it's not racist, has no prejudice, and we absolutely somehow got affected by this. No matter where we are, no matter how much more or less money we have, it's just the reality that we all everywhere around the world had to face. We no matter how much advanced our scientific resources are, I'm here in Korea and we could say such an advanced country in terms of technology and as you all know, we haven't been able to let's say vaccinate everyone and find its own a national vaccine too. So anyway, it's a challenge that we all have. So we're all immersed in that challenge. And I think we need to, one of the lessons for the whole planet, I guess, has been, we need to cooperate more. It has been the focus of my studies, the importance of international cooperation. And I think what we're doing right now, this is a very good example of what it is, right? So how we can collaborate and learn from each other. So the impacts of the COVID, there are a few areas that I will spend some time sharing with you what I have been researching on. And as you can imagine, I try as much as I can to help my own country, but also other organizations to understand how we can deal with such a complicated issue, right? And how we can learn from this tragic moment in history of our humanity and move on, learning all sorts of lessons that we can. But my focus today is really based on a few of my researches that I've spent since the beginning of, let's say, more than a year ago, when the first case emerged here in South Korea. And of course, it spread all over the world. So a little bit of an education, employment, mental health, income or the source of income, the pressure that the impact on everyone, including our students and teachers and everyone that compose the sphere of education, and of course well-being. So those are some of the areas that I would like to cover today. It looks that I can somehow share my screen, so I will try. And if I can just move around things here, and you will be able to, or let me try here to present.
Yes, we can.
hope you can see a little bit of this presentation. Going back to the topics that I was going to, but if I do this, I won't be able to, to move for whatever reason the slides. So I have to stop sharing. I'm sorry, my apologies. It looks like I can't move. I tried before the slides around. Anyway, so let's just go ahead with the presentation. I think that's what matters. So the first one is, of course, some of the disruptions that COVID-19 or this pandemic has imposed on, of course, the focus will be always on the youth groups, okay? So it has affected, if we can go back in time and try to analyze, what has happened the last a year or so, we would all agree that the disruptions have affected all aspects of our lives, no matter where we are, as I said before, and no matter how old or young we are. So it affected everyone, everywhere. But with the youth, it looks like, based on all the researches that have emerged, of course, we're not here at any point talking about the let's say, the more health slash more physical, biological aspects of what the pandemic has caused, but it's a more behavior slash education and mental health. Okay, so it has really disrupted all aspects of our lives. We're all, those of us who are in the classroom and dealing with students, it's obvious to us, right? It affected our everyday work, but also how we deal with our students' quality of learning, right? And their behavior in the classroom, or the absence at all, or, as many of us are still experiencing, is the lack of this interaction with our students. But it looks like it's very clear to most of us who are doing research in this area that it affected differently according to the age groups. So it's important for us to understand that everyone has been affected and will be even more affected with the time, right? Because it's been more than a year now that we're all locked in this reality, and it's new to everyone. No one has ever experienced anything like this. And with the impact, let's say, globally, as we have now, although the world has experienced so many crises, has gone through so much, wars and invasions and occupations and all that, but nothing at this dimension, because it has really disrupted everything. And another thing is how we can maybe the need to understand the importance of cooperation, of global interaction. I don't think in any other situation, in any world war, the world has realized the importance of cooperation. And I think that is the main point for this discussion, is like how we can learn, right? After all this disaster, this global disaster, right? And of course, the focus is the threats to the well-being of people that we deal with, right? Regardless of, if you're a parent with your children, and as a teacher with our students. So we're all somehow, it's our responsibility to learn how we can better cope with those challenges. So I want to share with you some evidence, because I can say things and you can, find some anecdotal information from people that are dealing with the situation, maybe, let's say, affected by or has acquired the virus and has been affected somehow, got sick, or has unfortunately gone because of this coronavirus. So, and I know so many people that have lost their beloved ones, parents, friends, colleagues, or are somehow very close to people that are in the hospital or waiting in line to get actually a place in the hospital. So it's a horrible situation that we all somehow, a year ago, we never thought we would get to this point. So some evidence. One of them is that it has affected very differently and in different stages at different points in time, the whole entire, let's say, humanity, right? But especially those, let's say, more vulnerable groups. So let's say, for example, the youth, as I mentioned, women, and let's say, if we want to be more specific, young women out there who are already experiencing, regardless where they are, the impacts of this pandemic. But it has affected, no matter what, the less, let's say, with those with less income, those that are, away from the main, let's say, resources available out there. So those are the most vulnerable. And that's very important because it has just increased the gap, the social gap, globally. It has deeply affected all of us in all our societies, but particularly those who are marginalized, those who do not have access, let's say, to the basic, means of good quality of living, who are already suffering, and they have even more been affected by this terrible pandemic. So we need to keep that in mind. It's everyone, but particularly that group. And I could go more into specifics. For example, 2.5 times more likely to be unemployed, to keep, in unemployment, the youth, right? And the ages, of course, when we say aged groups, the youth, it's usually, from 25 up to 40, 50, 60, depending on how. But those who are still in the labor market, those who are still looking for jobs or in the job market, those were absolutely the most affected. And we're gonna be more specific in that group who has been more impacted. What we know right now, after a year or so of research, is that 45% within the OECD countries, which is usually the statistics when it comes to social statistics, it's always OECD, because OECD countries are the ones who are, let's say, a bit more developed or fully developed. Most of them, the great majority, is democratic, so it's important because politics is always involved. But those, in everything we study, especially in education, we refer as a model those OECD countries. The Philippines is although it's not part of the OECD, but because it belongs to ASEAN and it's a member of the international community, has, there's a lot that we can relate on the importance of international cooperation, especially. But what we know is that at least 45% based on all sorts of research. So almost half of the youth in our countries have been severely affected in all sorts of ways. And I mentioned a few of them in the beginning of the presentation. But those are at we call high risk of developing severe physical, health, and mental symptoms that will last for a long time, not to say potentially forever. That is going to be one of the consequences, that no matter what we do right now, this has been tremendously disturbed the norm of development of any country. Unfortunately, I cannot show some of the graphs that I have prepared that deals with and shows it specifically country by country on mental health, disposable income, the employment impacts of the pandemic, of this crisis. But it shows, it just goes on and on, somehow supporting this idea that we all been affected, but the youth especially has been tremendously, youth from all sorts of age groups. But let's go on to a bit more specific, because there are some areas that I think it's important to talk about. So for example, when we talk about employment or disposable income, right? That is very important, because it doesn't mean it's necessarily that the youth is already in the labor market, but their parents are, right? So the families, the household that they live in has been tremendously affected by the pandemic. And what we know is that yes, it disrupts everyone, but the low paid, or that has really, that depends on services, for example, and has a already very limited source of income, is those who are severely affected. Okay. And all sorts of, I mentioned services, but that's one of them. Imagine, for example, those working at restaurants, at on the travel industry, on hospitality, and those are very basic services that countries, like a good example is the Philippines, that really depends on that source of income for its own GDP. The consequences of that, and it's not 1 month or 1 day, but a year and more, and we don't know when we're going to go back to some level of normality. So it is very important. So the higher risk of job and income loss are those who are already in the lower end, right? The low paid. We have to look at a group that is very, very important, those who are graduating. And those of you who work in universities, it is very problematic, because they are graduating, and then what? Where do they go? If those who had jobs are losing, right, because the crisis is extending and there's no end to it. The tunnel is over there, and we have to be extremely optimistic that will be a light at the end, but we are not there yet. We are maybe in the middle of this tunnel, but not at the end at all. So we need to get ready somehow to walk through this tunnel together for another half or more, because this year has been very difficult. But in the meantime, while we are walking through this tunnel, there are so many who are, with us, and poor kids who are just graduating now and desperate for a job. So this is a group of students that we do have to consider, right? Those who are in college or whatever technical school, but they are concluding their programs. And where do they go? So that's one thing. So the long-lasting impacts of the crisis. How are we going to deal with that? Right, financially, psychologically, mentally, it is very problematic. One thing interesting that the statistics has shown is that it has affected so much everyone, that no matter what, those who had lower secondary education have gotten to the same level of challenges. We're talking about challenges, right? Of the challenges of those who graduated from graduate schools, because those are the two extremes, right? Those who do not got into a higher education, and those who got the highest education. Is that when you apply for a job and they say, oh, you're overqualified, sorry, those people are also facing that great challenge. And of course, those who do not have any qualification, right? But this crisis, as I said before, has no prejudice. This virus doesn't really look at your degree. They will affect everyone, as it has already affected everyone. So let's keep that in mind. But we are all, in a way, somehow connected to education. So I wanted to spend some time on that. And I know time is flying, and I would appreciate if someone would just interrupt me and say, you have 2 minutes before I conclude. I would, if Lian or someone could just give me that, because I lost track of time already. So Anyway, but please let me know if when 2 minutes are before I have to make my concluding remarks. So I'm going to give you some numbers, and it's very, very scary. One of them, and it's only the impact of the COVID-19 in the youth, and let's say, you know, people that we deal with in terms of education. What we know right now, that so far 1.5 billion 1.5 billion people, and that grows every day. My country right now, it's about 3,000, 4,000 people dying every day. We cannot put those numbers in a pot somewhere and cook it and or leave it, you know, that one day they will disappear. No, it's one life, 2, 3, 4, 4,000 of them dying every single day. And that is one country. And then, of course, you know, other countries experience very similar numbers, not that high. And, you know, I am in a country that we hear every other day someone dying. So it's the other extreme, right? So, but what we know, regardless, we're not talking about death, but people that are still alive and coping with the challenge. 1.5 billion children and the youth worldwide has either stopped learning or severely affected by the pandemic. In other words, some of them have zero chance to get any sort of learning because the schools are closed, teachers don't have communications, and they have zero access to you know, some form of online learning. When I hear the word online learning, all I can think of are the slums on the mountains of all our countries. Not all countries, but many countries, at least mine, and where, you know, some of you are. And
Excuse
they
me, Dr. Diaz.
minute.
May I remind that you have a minute to wrap up your speech so
Thank
we can
you.
proceed
That's
to the next.
exactly what I
Thank
wanted.
you.
Thank you. I appreciate. So what I was trying to say is that how can we think of, you know, all those children and people in general in those places, living in those conditions, to think about hand sanitizer, you know, online learning. Yes, you open your computer, you sit down in your living room or in your bedroom, and you'll have a class. Well, we don't have that luxury, right? So you're basically many, many millions of people. So now it's 1.5 billion people that are in that level of, let's say, in the brackets of those who do not have access. You know, schools are closing, opening, closing, and that disruption, only those of us who are educators can truly understand the impacts in our students, right? So only half of the students, what we know right now is that only half of the students around the world, this is a worldwide statistic, only half of them was able to have access to the basic curriculum for a year. And you know, it's a lost generation because we can't go back. We can't learn everything that has been lost in the whole year. And of course, you know, what we know is that 1 out of 5 do not have, this is a worldwide statistic too, and I will conclude with the very sad number, but only 1 out of 5 you know, will have some form of access to either, you know, a device or a printed material that has been distributed to somehow the schools that have remained open, and the teachers are already heroes regardless, right? But think about our job as a hero in times of crisis, right? So that's what we do. We just put our caps and hats and fly with the flow. So
Time
my
is up.
last consideration, what I think, and there are so many, I guess, recommendations that we would make to those who are in leadership positions, is that we do have to think about our youth in particular, because they are our future. And with no future ahead of us, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And we have to collaborate. We have to learn from each other. And as a good leader, we sacrifice, we listen to people, and we put into action everything that we have learned as a leader, right? And sacrificing, putting when we the art of listening, and making sure that we are serving the people as we must. As a teacher, that's our job, as that's what we do in the classroom. And as whoever is in a leadership position has always to think as this with this global vision that everyone
Okay.
is protected. All right. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Diaz, for sharing your research findings to us, for your take-home message to all the leaders present here. Thank you for saying that we need to emphasize on the importance of global interaction and collaboration. Once again, thank you for that responses of the international youth groups into the challenges imposing the COVID-19 on their learning and lifestyle. So we shall now proceed to our next presenter, and our next presenter has a PhD in education degree with a specialization in reading education from the University of the Philippines in Diliman as a CHED FDP2 grantee. She has a Master of Arts degree major in English as second language, which she completed at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, Honolulu, USA as a Fulbright scholar, and a Master in Education degree major in teaching English as a second language at the University of the Philippines. She was a fellow of the Philippine-Australia Project in Basic Education, where she completed a certificate program in professional studies, teacher education at a Queensland University of Technology in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. She also just earned a certificate in higher education teaching from Harvard University, USA, as a scholar of the United Board for Christian Higher Education in Asia. She is our Associate Dean and Acting Dean of the College of Education at Silliman University. She is a co-founder and the first president of the Philippine-Kenya Education Network, or PEN. She is also a co-founder of NIGHTS, or Negros Island Teacher Education Synergy. Today, she will be sharing the experiences of student teachers who are learning how to conduct action research for the first time. Her talk is entitled Becoming Action Researchers, Experiences of Student Teachers Conducting Action Research in an Online Distance Learning Context. Ladies and gentlemen, a virtual warm of applause for our presenter, Dr. Gina Fontejon Bunyor. Dr. Gina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nasvik. Allow me to just set my presentation on full screen. May I know if you're already seeing it on full screen?
Not yet, Ma'am Jean.
Okay. Is it saying that it is sharing, or I will reshare if it doesn't? I will resume sharing. Sometimes these things happen. We just have to do it all over again. So this is my take two, just like what we did earlier. My talk will tell you that I am not any expert on action research. How is this, Ma'am El? Do you see it now? Okay.
Yes, Ma'am Jean, full.
Right. So I would like to greet everyone, my colleagues and friends. This is a reunion of sorts. I see deans of teacher education institutions from different universities in Negros, in Kenya. I would like to greet you a warm hello from the Philippines, and we have colleagues and friends from Australia, from Korea, and other countries. And I would like to share with you that I'm actually pleased that Dr. Diaz started his talk by saying that what he likes about what's happening now, although it's not something that we welcome, is the fact that we are compelled to share our experiences with each other. I am no expert on action research, but I am here to share with you my experience as a novice teacher. This is my first time teaching action research to students, particularly student teachers who are formulating or conceptualizing their action research proposal, or recently already conducting their action research. So what I will share with you is not a complete picture, but I will share with you what my students in the student teaching internship program and I have learned as we navigate through the complexities of learning how to do action research for the first time. So this is how my talk will be organized. I will briefly talk about the context. Why am I here and what do I intend to accomplish out of this conversation? And then I will very briefly talk about action research. Dr. Orasyon already described it lengthily, and very well done and articulated. So I removed some of the slides. So I have just 2 slides to give a brief description of action research, because I'd like to dive into the sharing of the experiences of student teachers, particularly these are BS Ed, secondary education students who are in my class. This is not a class on action research. This is student internship program, but as mentioned earlier by Dr. Erlin, CHED and the Department of Education in the Philippines, in a joint memoranda required 10 outputs and processes for our student teachers. And requirement number 9 is that student teachers must conduct action research. So this is the broader context within which I will mention or discuss with you the experience of my student teachers. So as mentioned by Dr. Orasyon earlier, one way of looking at action research is that it is a spiral process. Action research is any research into practice undertaken by those involved in the practice. In this case, the student teachers in the internship program, with the primary goal of encouraging continued reflection and making improvement on the teaching learning processes or teaching practices. At the second level, I would like to share with you that I will also share my own action research. So my action research is investigating the experiences of student teachers who are conducting action research, because I want to be better at what I do, since this is my first time to teach a course that requires action research as an output. So if you look at this spiral, it says that you start by reflecting on your practice. So I am the student teaching supervisor. Part of the requirement for graduation or passing the student teaching internship is my students teachers should, or that the students will submit an action research output. So since that is my context, I am now reflecting on number 1, since this is their first time to formulate and engage in or conduct action research, how may I be able to help them navigate through this process? So I am in the reflecting phase. In the next phase, the planning phase, I now need to gather as much information that I have on this phenomenon, because my student teachers are telling me that they are having a hard time going through the action research engagement process. So I will be sharing with you my reflection and then planning phase. For us to have a better appreciation of action research, I am sharing with you a slide which I got from the college readiness team of CHED K-12 transition program. And I find this slide really helpful because in one glance, or at a glance, it shows you the key distinction, or the differences between action research and academic research, or what they call also theoretical research. So in terms of objectives, action research answers the question, how? How do I improve this practice, given what I have observed? Whereas academic research will most likely focus on the question, why? That's why academic or theoretical research is usually hypothesis testing or theory generating. But action research focuses on intervention, reflection, and then back to action. In terms of duration, since the doers of action research are practitioners like me, I'm a teacher, or like the student teachers in my student teaching internship program, the duration is quick, right? You have a shorter time frame because you want to find out if your intervention indeed results in your expected change, either in behavior, change in processes, or change in output. Whereas academic or theoretical research is usually long time, right? Like your dissertation or your thesis, although there are also academic research that are done at a shorter span of time, right? So it's not really black and white here. This is the concern or problem with dichotomous presentations, but there are overlaps, okay? The third is methodology. In terms of methodology, action research is usually qualitative, although you will also find action researches that are quantitative. But because usually in action research, you want to describe the process. You want to describe what happened as you engage your learners in the intervention. It's usually qualitative in nature, right? Whereas academic or theoretical research could be quantitative or qualitative. In terms of significance, this was mentioned by Dr. Orasian earlier, action research has practical purposes and exists for a particular reason. I'm a practitioner. I observe that something needs to be done in my class. I will research and see what other teachers have done, maybe choose one of those intervention or strategies, or perhaps I could devise my own, then use or apply this intervention, and then document how this intervention results in particular changes either in processes or products. In terms of academic research, the significance is usually theoretical. Like I said earlier, it could be theory generating or hypothesis testing. So let me just allow me to share with you the larger context of this beginning, because this is just the first two parts of the AR that I'm doing. So the larger context is that prior to COVID, Silliman University has both, you have on campus and off campus. So our student teaching program is 1 year and it is face-to-face. In the first semester, that's about 5 months, our student teachers are fielded in Silliman University because we have our own early childhood, elementary, junior high school, and senior high school departments. And then in the second semester, they are fielded to the various public or government-owned schools. When the pandemic struck us, Silliman went on full ODL. So we have our own platform, Silliman Online University Learning, or MySoul. Dr. Marshall is here with us. He is the director of that unit of the university. And because everything is ODL, our early childhood, elementary, junior, senior high school are on full online distance learning. So when we fielded our student teachers, they have to embark themselves in this experience of conducting student teaching or teaching internship in a purely ODL context. Although some student teachers tell me that their critic teachers or cooperating teachers sometimes ask them to see them in person for conferences. But then again, these are in the statistical term outliers, because the university policy is that all internship programs must be done on ODL, because like many universities, many institutions, we prioritize the wellness, the health of our students and our teachers and everyone on campus. So this is what Dr. Erlin mentioned earlier. Early 2020, we received this joint CHED-DepEd memorandum, which says, among others, that CBARS, or classroom-based action research, is required of all student teachers. And CHED and DepEd define CBARS as research studies conducted by our student teachers in their internship, and it will focus on specific teaching and learning processes identified by the student teachers. So that's the larger context. Now I am a supervisor of a student teaching program. I am then, like what Dr. Diaz mentioned, I was immersed in this new situation, and I had to ask myself, okay, action research is now required. Everyone is doing this online. How do I teach student teachers to engage in action research in an environment when I don't have any opportunity to teach them, to engage them face to face? So what I did was I researched, I read on how DepEd and how CHED conceptualize action research, since the joint memorandum came from them. And what I found out, and this is really laudable, is that in DepEd, action research is part of their culture. Teachers are required to engage in collaborative action research because the Department of Education is into evidence-based teaching. If you want to introduce any change, show me evidence. And the best way to do that in your classroom is through action research. So in our virtual classroom, I posted the links of DepEd and CHED on what action research is, how important it is for teachers and would-be teachers or aspiring teachers to conduct it, what are its parts, and how to go about it. I also posted there DepEd Order 16 series of 2017. This is very important. This is a Department of Education order that sets the guidelines on how action research is to be conducted by teachers at the Department of Education. And it includes the rubric, it includes the different formats, the different steps, and opportunities for DepEd teachers in terms of financial sources of funding for their AR. Okay, so this is what I got from that DepEd order. So there are several templates that may be available online, but I strategically chose the one proposed by DepEd because I know for a fact that many of our graduates will join the Department of Education. So part of the annexes in DepEd Order 16 series of 2017 is the format for the action research proposal. And you may notice that there is not much difference than the one compared or presented earlier by Dr. Aracion. Only that here, immediately, instead of introduction, you have context and rationale. Then your action research questions. Then the proposed innovation or intervention, then how you propose to collect information or data. How do you propose to document the application of this intervention? Then you have your action work plan. So this can be done through Gantt chart and timelines. I deleted cost estimate for my class because there's no funding for our student teachers, sadly. Then we have the plans for dissemination and utilization. This was also presented by Dr. Ike. Now, in terms of the joint memorandum, it says that it should be disseminated. It doesn't specify if it is public presentation, oral, or publication. But for our student teachers, we believe it would be more manageable if they present their action research outputs in a forum like this for all student teachers. That's something that we will organize, and we will be inviting student teachers from other schools. And finally, your references. So part of the approach is mentoring. Remember, my positionality is that this is my first time to teach this, and my students are doing this for the first time. And please take note that the student teachers at Silliman University are teaching ODL. Many of them, 3 out of the 10 that I am handling now, are also working full-time. One is based in South Korea because she went home when the pandemic struck us. And then the rest of the student teachers are not only student teaching, they are also taking other content or major subjects. That's the bulk of load that they have. And so this is why I felt it's really important for me to find out how I can best facilitate or assist my student teachers because they are in such a flux. just a sudden shift of modality from face to face to online, then this requirement, and then they are working, some of them, plus they are also taking some major courses. So I would like to share with you what I do. This is just a 3-minute bit in a 25-minute consultation. After they submitted their proposal, I conducted an online consultation with them. As you watch this, please take note of how I try to figure or conceptualize the topic out, figure it out with the student.
So the thing with writing is you have to be very specific. So here, refer to DO on grading system in the new normal. I have read the department order, so you can just Google it and you will see it. Like they have how to compute it, what percentage, what are the components. So I like that part because you went directly to this. K to 12, online na. Because online na, this is the grading system, and the grade is computed primarily on performance tasks. And then you're transitioning. Remember, we are still in rational. So kana imong Dr. Harman the study, this will be in the review of the literature, right? So postpone this to the review of the literature. So this is the rationale of the paper. Should be brief, maybe 3 to 4 paragraphs only. So you've already made your case. You're telling us, hey, we are now in the ODL. Performance task is very important and product is very important. It comprises so much percent of the grade. Students are having a hard time with this. There's just too much performance tasks. And without effective time management, they will have a problem. This is why many students are not able to submit their performance tasks on time. Did I get the drift of your introduction, Neil? So I like it. It's very clear to me. You're telling me, hey, it's ODL now. K-12 has this new grading system for the new normal. And much of it is performance tasks. But there's just too many performance tasks that our students are doing. So they have to learn how to manage their time. Because they are not taught how to manage their time, they procrastinate, they cram, and then many of them are not able to submit their work on time. Okay. And because of this, so now you've laid down the setting, the context. Because of this concern, we want to study this. This is what we want to study. But because there might be very few of them, I think qualitative would do. Like what you said, that you already started interviewing them in the chat room. That's okay. Let's make sure that before we conduct the study, we write a letter to the principal that you're conducting an action research, and it will entail getting information, a number of students in this particular class who are unable to submit their performance tasks on time, and that you will request the permission of the parents to interview the students on what causes this inability, because you want to help the students address the concern. That's essentially the tone of your letter. So please send me the draft of your letter. It has to be positively worded so parents do not feel threatened. So please send me the draft before you send it to the principal or to the parent. So in summary, Neil, this is what you're going to do. You ask the teacher for the data. How many students are not submitting their work on time? The purpose is you want to identify these students, interview them on what causes their inability to submit on time. The reason why you want to know the cause is you want to provide an intervention. So what will be your intervention? Example, consistent monitoring ba? Helping the student come up with a timetable or a Gantt chart or any strategy that you could help the student out. And then after doing that, let's find out if the student will submit their work on time.
Okay. So like I said, that was a 3-minute bit of a usual 25 to 30-minute conference I have with students. So we really figure things out. We look at the proposal part by part, and I ask the students to think aloud and share with me what they really want to study, what problem they have observed, which they believe should be addressed, and what possible interventions they could implement so that they will be able to see after a certain span of time whether this intervention works. So again, action research, the purpose is improvement of practice. So as they document this, they continue the process of reflecting on it, and then, as Sir Ike mentioned, it's spiral. If it works, great. If it doesn't, what else can be done? So I hope that you see here, what you notice is that I'm only showing my part of the discussion because I want to protect the identity of our students. I hope I have made my point that part of my responsibility, and I know that there are several professors here from different teacher education institutions who are in the same platform, the same phase as me, that now you realize that as student teaching supervisor, part of your responsibility is to teach or to facilitate, to engage our students in action research. So I believe that mentoring is a critical part of it. And because this is their first time, it's very important and also
So the
very
thing with
rewarding,
writing, you
right?
have to be
Sorry.
very
It's
specific.
very rewarding for us there when we realize that our students are actually proceeding as they should, and that they are actually invested, that they are sincerely, they're really passionate. I was just inspired because they're really passionate about, yes ma'am, this is the problem. Some of them, it's already third grading, they are still not able to submit their first grading requirement, and I really need to help this student. And that to me is inspiring, and that's kind of inspiration that drives me to spending more time, on top of our usual administrative work and other tasks that we do. Another format that you see if you go to Deped Order 16 series of 2017 is the format for the Action Research Report. Earlier, what you saw was the format for the Action Research Proposal. So after they conduct the intervention, they will write their report. And this is the format that's recommended by CHED. This other format that I'd like to show you, is the format of the College Readiness Team of the Commission of Higher Education. So, as mentioned earlier by Sir Ike, you have introduction. But what I like about this format is that it is student teacher friendly. If it's your first time to do it, instead of the big words, you say, okay, introduction. You just discuss what is the context and why you are doing this, and then tell me what you want to find out and for whom this is helpful. So just by looking at the why, what, for whom dimension, you already have your introduction. And then for the review of the literature, I tell my students, there's a big difference when you review the literature for academic or theoretical research, because you look for the gap in the literature, and then you conduct a study to contribute to the filling of that gap. But in the review of the literature in action research is much simpler. The reason why you're reviewing the literature is you want to find out if other teachers have already encountered similar problems and if there are already intervention programs available, so you can modify, you can adapt, you can accommodate these interventions. So I tell my students, please do not spend so many weeks just going into the literature review, because we have very limited time. Our student teachers are there only for 3 months, and they only meet their students synchronously once a week. So you have a very small window to come up with a study that is supposed to show difference in practice. And this is something that I'd like to very quickly share with you later on when I ask student teachers what they think about this requirement. Is it really helping them? And is it really helping our students at the School of Basic Education? So the usual, you have the methodology. So methodology, I tell the student teachers, very simple. Think of who are in the study, where is it, and how you're going to do it, right? So the nitty-gritty of the details of how you will do it will be made clearer to you if your why, what, and for whom are well laid out or well articulated. And then you have the findings. So this is the documentation of how the intervention has affected or not affected the intended change. Then you have your conclusion, which will detail the outcomes, the implications, and where you will describe how other teachers may use the findings of your research. How will other student teachers benefit from these findings? So, because I was curious and I told my students, I will not ask you to do something that I will not do myself. So I will also conduct an action research. So I am researching my student teachers who are doing action research for the first time. And because, teaching and learning is dialogic and transactional, I am part of the research. That's why participatory action research is the more popular term, because the researcher is part of the study. So if we look at the term that was presented earlier by Dr. Arishon, the question that I have there, what is the perception of student teachers on their ongoing experience conducting AR in an ODL context would be your theoretical question. Then you have practical questions there. What have been your successes? What have been some sources of difficulty? What are your suggestions so I can help you better as your facilitator or instructor so that we can address this? What strategies may we use in this student teaching internship program to help you better navigate or complete your action research? That is the practical aspect or question. So like I mentioned, these are the participants in the study. I am part of the participant. My positionality is I am the student teaching supervisor for the Bachelor of Secondary Education students. I have 10 students, right? You will say, wow, hey ho, very good, ma'am. Good for you. I know some will be saying because others may have 50, 60 students. Yes, I only have 10, but with the 10, I tell you, it is a challenge. Because our student teachers, like I mentioned earlier, are multitasking. They are working and teaching full time, right? And then they are conducting this action research. And of course, these are family persons. And more importantly, they're doing action research for the first time with a mentor like me who's also doing action research for the first time. So if your situation is similar to mine, well, maybe you can benefit from what my student teachers are saying. So I asked them some questions and I will just focus on 4. One is, how has your experience been doing the AR? And I already put in capital letters the themes that I saw: overwhelming, challenging, difficult. I have a feeling of uncertainty. Very hard. But 2 of the 10 said, oh, it widened my perspective in my teaching. It helped me see or appreciate better the processes that my students and I engage in. And then one student said, the action research has been going well. Students were able to answer my survey. It was hard at first, but now I'm getting it. So this is like an experience of apprenticeship. The second question is, what have been your successes? One said, oh, I'm now able to discover, I have a better appreciation of our platform because it's through the platform that they conduct the research. And then somebody said, now I realize what's easy. It's easier to look for weak areas or problems because ODL presents a lot of problems. So it's very easy for us to look for a problem. Some research teachers would say that usually the problem of students is they don't have a problem. Here we are presented with a context where there are just so many problems, and the concern of our student teacher is, which problem will I focus on, and which problem is it more practical to delve in given that I only have 2 months to work on this, right? And somebody said, I cannot say I've already made some progress or success, but I am trying. Then somebody said, we have been successful in identifying the problem. So generally, their success is, yes, it is easy to identify a problem because ODL presents a lot of problems. So there's a lot of opportunities for research. What have been some sources of difficulty? Here, 1, this is a theme. mentioned by others also in their responses. Communication is the biggest problem. And it's really wondering, why would communication be a big problem? They have internet. Again, I'm reminded of what Dr. Diaz mentioned, right? Just because some people may have internet connectivity that are strong doesn't mean, and just because they are in Silliman University doesn't mean that they have access to internet connectivity most of the times. And because they're all busy, they're multitasking, there's a very little window within which they are all available for conferences. Another said, conducting action research solely online is quite challenging because we get to interact with our students only once a week. In Silliman University, students, it's like a 5-day session, right, for every course. But because of internet connectivity problems or concerns in the Philippines, the decision of many teachers is to meet students synchronously once a week. The rest are asynchronous tasks. So because of that, you only have 1 day a week if you want to observe classes, if you want to record. So the main challenge is data gathering. The main challenge is looking for what really is the most appropriate instrument to use given this context. And another theme is time. The challenge is the lack of time. Okay? When I ask them, all right, so what do you wish you had? Because they said, Mom, we were not prepared for this. I said, what do you wish? What preparation do you wish you had to better equip you to conceptualize and conduct your AR? And they said, I wish I had more time. I wish I had learned more strategies on how to teach online. I think what teachers need most is time. So you see that over and over again. This is what we mean by emerging themes. Majority would say time. I wish I had more time. Scheduling. I wish I had more time preparing for this. So in other words, our student teachers like the idea. It's just that there are several circumstances, obstacles, concerns, difficulties that they have to overcome. So I asked them, if these were your concerns, what do you suggest should I do to help you? I need you to help me. Tell me how I can be a better facilitator of learning. And then they said, Ma'am, you're trying your best, but we need ample time to write the paper. And we would appreciate it if you check up on us on the progress more often, so we don't cram, because this is an opportunity. It's like reminding us about deadlines. And I think it would be better if we had, this one also was a theme in the responses. I wish we had good sample papers to refer to. And they want a meta-analysis of the sample paper. And they said that will require time, but they're willing to spend more time for it. And somebody said, the timing. I wish action research was taught to us before we started student teaching. When we get to student teaching, we should already know the basics of AR. So timing is another concern. Because while they're teaching, they're learning how to do it. And while they're learning how to do it, they are doing it. So it is just as difficult for them as it is for me. So the final question is, do you think action research should be a requirement? Do you agree with CHED and DepEd that this should be one of the major requirements for graduation? Believe it or not, the majority said yes. 9 out of 10 said yes. It's difficult, we're drowning, but yes, it's important. Yes, we want it as a requirement. Why? It's an opportunity for teachers to see the problems in the classroom and to improve on their practice, to find appropriate solutions. Somebody said, yes, it deepens the experience of student teaching, right? And they said, yes, it tells me how good or not good I am in what I do and how I can improve. Yes, I think this is preparation for my master's and doctoral degree later on. So they're already looking forward. And they said, for those who said no, they said, well, why should I do this? In the past semesters, in the face-to-face era, they were not required to conduct action research, and they graduated. Why should I be required to do this now? And that's the key reason for the person there who said no. But all the others are saying yes, one, for practical reasons, for professional development. Yes, for preparation for graduate studies. Those are the two things that I saw. So just some conclusions. This is what I gathered from these conversations that I'm having with the student teachers in my class.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Bonyo. Just 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Okay, so I am now in the last slide, I think second to the last. Student teachers do appreciate the process of learning how to conduct action research. They understand its importance in terms of reflecting on their teaching learning processes in the classroom with the goal of improving one's practice. They also see it as a preparation for graduate school. So it serves personal and professional purposes. However, the word overwhelmed is a theme that cuts across the responses. They're overwhelmed by the requirement because one, they are pressed for time. Two, they have not been prepared. They have not had any course on action research in the previous years, in the second year or third year. And so they feel ill-equipped to engage in action research. They are conducting action research simultaneously with other student teaching responsibilities and also taking other major subjects. I had one student who was taking 3 subjects on top of the full-time ODL student teaching. And finally, they are overwhelmed because the ODL modality has disrupted their customary ways of communicating with their classmates and students, affecting the AR process. So that's where I am now. So I have delved into the problem of my own class, and I'm thinking, what is the next step? Because the next step after reflecting and observing should be acting. So my realization as the student teaching supervisor is, starting next week, I will have to have a plan so that I will have conferences with my student teachers because they are now in the analysis. They need continuous, hold on just a minute, something came up. Okay. Continuous mentoring through conferences. Okay. That's my personal take. That's what I will do as a teacher. At the larger context, there is a concern here that must be addressed by the College of Education. 1, I have to meet with the chair of the Teacher Education Department to discuss the content of the curriculum and to look at opportunities as to where action research as a subject, as a requirement, could be incorporated. Perhaps it can be incorporated in the field study courses. Second, I should continue, and this should be part of the program, continue close mentoring of student teachers as they conceptualize their proposals and actually conduct the research and write it. And we should, as a college, conduct training on action research for all student teaching supervisors like me and for the cooperating teachers who are based at the School of Basic Education, because our cooperating teachers, as mentioned by our student teachers, are helping them with their action research. So the cooperating teacher is the teacher in the School of Basic Education. Our student teachers are mentored by the teacher at the elementary school, junior high school, etc. Our cooperating teachers should also be trained on how to conduct action research because they are mentoring our student teachers. We should seek possibilities of research collaboration, not only among student teachers, but among and between student teachers, cooperating teachers, and student teaching supervisors. And I would like to end with this plan that I pray will help prepare the next batch of student teachers. So I'm very thankful to the student teachers this year who are here in this room. Thank you very much for participating in the study. Good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Bonyo, for such a comprehensive sharing of your experience and your students' experiences with action research. As we discovered through your presentation, that it is not always straightforward, particularly in these times of challenge that we're facing, given that we are also learning and trying to understand remotely whilst balancing different tasks as students, as parents, and also to try and get our heads around, I can only just imagine, suddenly I have to do action research. Oh, and I've got other subjects that I need to consider. Oh, hang on, I can't actually consult with you face to face. What am I doing? So I think you really well outlined some of the challenges that student teachers are facing. And I might add just quickly, because I know we're going over time, I'm actually working with some master's students and a range of teachers. So they're already graduated. Some of them are what I would describe as master teachers, and they've never done action research either. And they are still having a lot of the same issues that you're speaking about. And I particularly like, and you're giving me some ideas, the idea about differentiating between what action research is and what academic research is, to really hone in what is relevance, what am I doing, how am I doing it, why am I doing it, and also the focus that it is about evidence-based practice. So there is a purpose, it is purposeful, and as Dr. Arasham was saying as well, it is ongoing. So I think you also made a very good point in terms of recognizing both the challenges and opportunities, that when it is part of an undergraduate degree or a unit as such, that the challenge for students then is to think about, well, what question can I reasonably answer given that short time frame? Because you want it to be, you want the implementation to be sustainable or sustaining beyond your time, your 3-month allotted time in that particular context. So I really appreciate the example that you shared about mentoring. So I think that's really important to break down what is involved and why, especially when there is not that physical interface where we're predominantly online. So I think that tracing the specific steps and trying to piece together what am I doing and why across the processes of drafting and implementing and then reflection on the action research itself, I think you've really presented some wonderful strategies for us to take away. So thank you so much. Okay, so moving on to our next presenter. Our next presenter, Dr. Dave Marshall, obtained his Bachelor of Science in Computer Science in 1999, cum laude, from the Divine Word College. While working his full first-time job in Dumaguete City, he was able to finish his Master of Science in Computer Science at the University of Negros Occidental. He completed his Doctor of Philosophy in Educational Management at Silliman University in 2011. He also completed a certificate program in education at the same university. In 2016, he obtained a Summer Institute Certificate on Leadership in Higher Education at Boston College with seminars in Harvard University as part of being a United Board Fellow of the United Board for Christian Higher Education in Asia. In the same fellowship, he was a visiting fellow at International Christian University, Tokyo, Japan, and completed a leadership seminar in Singapore. He had joined the academy as an instructor at the age of 21 at AMA Computer College. After 3 years, he was appointed OIC Dean in the same college. He then joined the faculty of Silliman University in 2003, where he has served as instructor in the Department of Computer Science. In 2007, he was promoted to Dean of the College of Computer Studies. In 2013, he was appointed as Officer in Charge of the Research and Development Center of Silliman University. Dr. Marshall holds various leadership positions in many professional organizations in the country. He is the founder of the Society for ICT in Teacher Education that promotes the integration of ICT in the teaching and learning process. He is appointed as a member of the CHED's Technical Committee for Information Technology and is one of the founding board of directors of the newly formed PCS Information and Computing Accreditation Board, a Seoul Accord affiliate. He is the executive director of the Asian University Digital Research Network. Dr. Marshall has published academic papers in both local and international refereed journals, where several of these are cited as best papers. His research interest lies in ICT in education, local knowledge computing, and information systems, where he's been the recipient of some local and international research grants. He received the Best Paper Award in Information and Policy Papers during the 10th National Conference on IT Education, in addition to numerous awards that he has received over the years. Courses that he is teaching include Principles of Research, Quantitative Research, IT Strategic Planning, IT Management, ICT in Education and for librarians, ICT in Education specifically for librarians, among others. Dr. Marshall leads several community outreach activities to empower the lives of economically challenged students, employees, senior citizens, security guards, out-of-school youth, physically challenged people, amongst others, through ICT. He holds various committees in the university, like the Student Aid and Scholarships, the PBI DOST Award, and he has been instrumental in the establishment of new innovations in Silliman University, like the establishment of the Apps Incubation and Development Laboratory, the Mariano Lau Innovation, Creation and Invention Laboratory, and the upcoming Technopreneur, I think I got that, Center in Negros Island region. Dr. Marshall is a recipient of the 2016 Most Productive Faculty Award in Silliman University. His presentation today is titled ICT Tools and Platforms for Action Research. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Marshall. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Hello.
evening.
Good
there we
evening.
are. There, we can see you. We can see you. Wonderful. Welcome, welcome. Please continue.
Thank you for the introduction. Let me share with you my slides so that I can start my discussions, and the topic given to me for this evening is all about ICT, and it's all about platforms that will help us improve in doing our research. Okay. Here is the outline of my presentation. In 20 minutes, I will be presenting tools for literature search and review, followed by data collection tools. Then I will be sharing some tools for analysis, whether for visualization or textual in nature, like for quantitative and qualitative analysis. Then some tools give some hints, tools for proofreading and checking, and advanced tools for research writing. And I will end my presentation tonight by sharing with you some of the recent trends in publications, in writing and publication. Now, there are actually different tools for literature review, and for sure, among the many challenging tasks is finding a very good and a reliable and high quality research papers. There are many there are many steps, or there are many procedures along the way that you can integrate information technology in literature search and review. One is during your searching time. You can use online search, of course. You can use your advanced or the customized search in Google. I am not sure if you are familiar with that, but there is an option in Google where you can use advanced search, where you can filter specific information that you wish to search or to find from the internet. That's the basic. Another one is online databases, bookmark, reference management software, and researcher network. Then you can also integrate tools, software tools, and platforms in your referencing, where you don't need actually to manually memorize APA format, what comes next, first name, family name, Chicago, or whatsoever, because there are automated tools that can assist or help you in organizing your citations and references. And Of course, if we have advices, we are for sure advising our students here. Let us also assist our students in organizing our comments and suggestions by using or integrating some tracking changes and adding comments feature in many of the word processing tools. Now, don't worry, I'll be showing some examples later on so that you can visualize and see what I am talking about. First is some of the online search that we are familiar, and the most powerful and I think popular, at least in the Philippines or in some other Asian countries, is the Google. But what I would want to highlight is on the use of advanced feature of Google, something like this. Let me share my screen again, and so that I can demo to you on the use of Google Forms. Say for example, google.com, and like this. Once you are here, most of the time, many of us will immediately type the word here. Say for example, action research. And when we press enter key, we are given with 2,2,890 result. Research shows that browser will only browse up to the 3 page, and do that, and we do not know if that article given to us is the most relevant or the most appropriate paper to be cited. Now, the hint that I'll be sharing with you is something like this. There is a settings here. In the settings bottom here, you can use advanced search. And in the advanced search, say for example, I wanted to search action research, but do not give me a paper that mention Philippines. You can actually do that. Then when you search it, expect that all this paper doesn't mention Philippines. That is an example of an advanced search. Another, you can also find a specific paper or the origin of the paper being uploaded. No, like from the Philippines, from America, or from Germany or whatsoever. And there are many other forms. So the hint is your first takeaway is you should write this that do not immediately type search here. Most of the time, you will not find a very good article for you. Just use settings and then advanced search. And by the way, you can also check the file format. Like do not give me an article that is not in PDF. So just provide me in PDF version. File type PDF version. So just like this, when I search up, sorry, I forgot to input here, say action research, and then advanced search, and that's it. All of these are PDF where you can download. Okay, so that's one. I think that's helpful to you because it really helped me a lot also. Okay, next is we can use ebooks. There's a lot of ebooks available. Um, if you will ask me, have you paid an ebook? No, I do not. I do not subscribe to the idea of buying an ebook because there are so many OER. There are so many open educational resources that we can download. You can go to freeebooks.com. You can also go to Z Library where you can download PDF versions, full extended versions of articles that are initially in a subscription mode. No, then you can also go into, aside from the .com, you can also go to freeebooks.net, say for example. We can also use our own online databases. Like for Siliman, you can actually go to the online resources of Siliman. It's a portal that will give the general public a space where to go to the different journal publications related or appropriate to your research topic. And there are many, for sure, many of our universities, we have our own online databases. Okay, then Wikipedia is actually a good material for you to start, but we have to take note that anyone could edit or anyone could update a content on Wikipedia. But what I am trying to tell you is Wikipedia is a good start on what are the other content to be read, because the Wikipedia is a sort of organizer. It has a web crawler that organizes information, that will pick information from the different sources and put it into one. You can also go to the Wikipedia, say for example, nursing journals or education journals, then Wikipedia actually organizes it for you. All you have to do is to just choose the list of journals organized by Wikipedia. You can also go to sciencedirect.com. There are free and non-free versions into it, of subscription into it. But my suggestion to you, if the journal, if the article that you downloaded has a fee, my suggestion to you is email the author, because most of the time when author receive an inquiry, say for example for myself, if I get an inquiry from a researcher, can I get a copy of your questionnaire for possible citation? Then obviously I will respond it and give my paper, because again, that is an opportunity for you to be cited. So I think that's the whole idea why we can communicate or email our authors. You can also go to OCW MIT. We are all teachers here. It's a powerful resources of uh, a complete a complete learning resources, from assignment, answer keys, PDF material, video production, and it's just like a one virtual classroom that you can download. A lot of education topics are actually there. Let me share that one to you, so that you will have an idea what's OCW of MIT, and it's a very powerful material that we can OCW MIT. Oops, it's not here. Open courseware MIT. So this one. So say for example, I wanted to find a course here, the topic, and my topic is all about education. This is education here, teaching and curriculum and teaching, no specialty policy. I have all of here. When I click this one, you can download all of these for free. You have their course name, the syllabus, the calendar, the introduction, the materials. And what is good is you can download all of these. No, download all the material, put that into your computer as if there is already a ready-made virtual classroom for you. All you have to do is just modify it so that there is contextualization and localization of the teaching delivery. Okay, next, let me proceed to my slide, and here. Okay. Then from the online databases, by the way, you can also go to library.harvard.edu. It's also a OER, organizing all available journals found on the internet. What library.harvard.edu did is they just collect it automatically and put it into one journal. I mean, one portal. All the journals that you have published in many publishing companies or journals. You can also use that. You just have just a caution to be critically evaluated if you found the articles published on predatory conferences and journals and publishers. There's a lot, no? There's a lot. Say for example, just to give you an idea, this paper entitled "Get Me Off Your Fucking Mailing List" was unfortunately and or fortunately was accepted, no, was accepted for the International Journal of Advanced Computer Technology. Let us be caution, because in fairness there are also very good paper that are published from this predatory list as identified by Bell's Professor Bell. Okay, so be careful. You can get that link actually. You can find all the list of publications identified as predatory. Okay, next, some of the important links that you wanted to read about predatory conferences and journals, you can go to that. And this one, the pdos.csalmit.edu, is also an archive of technologies, I mean journals, technology related journal and education in general, the list of predatory. Let us all be careful, teachers, because I think there are students here, but I don't want to give an idea. There are tools actually and platforms that in just one click we can create a paper. We can create a paper and it gathers all information that you do actually on the internet. So something like that. That live guides, getting published conference eval, and you can read also some articles about how predatory and conferences now um, in the Philippines or in some other countries or even in the USA. Okay. Another tool that you can use in your literature search is na, we have already a term called literature analytics. What it does is when you type a certain article, the tool or the website will give you related articles of what you have selected. No, it will give you a recommended articles based on what you have searched. Why? Because there are already analytics. That is why, that is the power of online journals, because all online journals have actually an embedded metrics and embedded indexing, automated indexing that will automatically collect in one large database. So you can use that one. um, and then once you found a material or an article, please use the bookmarking of our browser. Bookmarking, this is where you are going to bookmark the web pages that you search. No, you can actually found it in the upper right, and this one, I mean the star, this no the star button here, meaning once you found a certain web page or a website, all you have to do is to bookmark, not necessarily download them all. No, because by the time it is already bookmarked into your computer, it is actually easy for you to revisit those. Just like on my screen, I just click on the history and all of my bookmarks are here. Okay, then another important link also that we can do in the searching process of our related literature is the mendeley.com. It's actually a desktop and a web program by Elsevier. I think all of us knows Elsevier, and it has a lot of literature, and at the same time you can organize your literature. I will demonstrate Mendeley in the next few slides because Mendeley is more of a citation management. Next is a citation online tool. How many of you here spend so much time in the manual process of what is the author's name, what is the title, which comes first, what is the article is only a section or a pages in a book reviewed by, what is the order, and so on and so forth. Don't worry, because there is an automated tool for you. One for this is Mendeley, and the other one is the citation builder. Just type citation builder, and then you can actually create all those references automatically. Let me demonstrate to you Mendeley so that you can appreciate what I am talking about. Mendeley is here. Okay, so I've Mendeley here. This is my Mendeley account. This is my Mendeley account, and say for example, I'm looking for all references, action research. It's none. Here you have um, some choices here. Let me remove my I am offline. No, and then what is good? What is good in this Mendeley is you can get an automated citation format, and then you can organize like this one. I have a collection. If that talks about e-learning, I can actually put it here. I have e-learning, and then if that is mobile, that paper or that journal is already organized into my folder. This is not downloaded on the computer, but you can actually download it. It is already in your account where you can read the article. And also, again, what is important, or I mean, the feature of this is there is a so-called automated citation that you can actually just get the format of this. Like this one, no, this is the format. All you have to do is to just copy and paste from your Word document. So that is Mendeley.com. Another one is the one I'd mentioned to you is the citation builder. Citation builder is like this. It's called citation machine. Okay. Um, you can actually go to citation machine, and then say for example I will create a citation. If that is a journal, I'll search, say for example, action research. When you search, you will find tons of paper here. For example, this is a good paper. All I have to do is to just click cite and then continue, and then they have all the data there. Assuming that is complete, all I have to do is to just click complete action, and there you go. There is copy the citation, and open your Microsoft Word. Say for example this one, I will open my Microsoft Word, and you can immediately paste it, no, and then there is already a citation for you. So let me demonstrate to you that when you copy from citation builder, it's gonna be like this. All you have to do is to just paste, and automatic there is the APA format. And the citation builder, you can actually choose either APA or any citation that you like to format. Just like this one, you can use MLA 8, 8th version, 7th version of APA, and so on and so forth. That's one, no? That's another tool that you can use in your literature search. Okay. Next to this is managing citations and bibliography. If you don't have internet connection, and assuming some of your materials are book, physical, the physical book, you can actually organize your references into your own computer. Like me, all my references, I have about 6,000 references, and that's already saved on my computer. I did not install any software, any program to that, because Microsoft Word, it is available in Microsoft Word. You can manage your resources. Let me share with you and demonstrate how to use it, just very quickly, so that you can appreciate what's this. Okay, so for example, you can actually go to references, and there is that manage sources there, and then you have a lot of styles there. You can just choose APA. If you have special, like in our field, we have a special ACM format. All we have to do is to just download it and install it in Microsoft Word. So say for example, if you are managing just like this, I have three. Assuming I inputted na, all you have to do is to input all, if what resources is that, and then all the year, etc. And assuming all these three are cited, assuming all those are cited, all I have to do is to just click bibliography and then insert. Then in just one click, automatic, you will see that in the APA format. Oh my God, I forgot. It's not APA. I need to choose MLA. All you have to do is to just click that one and then look for MLA, and then ta-da, it changed immediately. That's another tool for you that you can use. Okay. Then after this, you can also use tracking changes and adding comment, like in the video of Dr. Bunyor. What she was actually doing is sharing a Microsoft Word and then tracking the changes comment, because in my experience, it will also help us, teachers or advisors, monitor all our comments and suggestions to our students, and at the same time we would know also which items are updated or which items are not yet revised or improved. That's one. Okay, now let's proceed to another group of platforms in the conduct of our research, are the data collection tools. So data collection tools, um, we can use, of course, the online survey, especially now that it's online. Everything is online. All of us are online. You can use Google Form. You can use Google Monkey, Survey Monkey, Survey Monkey, and many more. There's many, no, and the most popular one is Google Form, very user friendly. You can also download some mobile apps. All you have to do is to just go to Google Play Store, in the case of Android users, or you can go to App Store in the case of the iOS users, and then type survey. Then you will be given a lot of mobile apps that you can install to your mobile phones or smartphones, and then you can use it as a survey questionnaire. Obviously, all you have to do is to just input all the questions there and your scales and etc. etc. And then you can use that for data collection, especially for self-guided type of administration or assisted type of interview. Okay. Now, tools for analysis, the third part, I mean, the third group of tools that I wanted to share with you are the tools for analysis. And most of the time in our results and discussions, it composed of text, it composed of tables, diagrams, and other visualizations. So say, for example, if you need a very nice graphics and a very nice graphs, pie chart, you name it, you can actually go to uh, you can go to you can go to canva.com graphs. It's a Canva, it's free if you are coming from education. You are given a free account and a free space, meaning storage, and access to the graphs of Canva. Well, if you are comfortable with Microsoft Excel or Sheets or spreadsheets, it is also a very powerful material or tool for you to create your charts and graphs. Okay, now for tools for quantitative analysis, you don't need actually to buy, especially for action research, no, and not sophisticated statistical analysis. There are free tools available online, like the one I showed you. Is if you need a chi-square, because I saw relationships there of the examples of Dr. Rashon and Dr. Bunior. This is a free tool. All you have to do is to input all your data, and then in just one click, you can calculate, and the system will tell you if there is a significant relationship or not. No, so let me share so that you can appreciate what I talking here and this one. Oops, not that one. Let me go here, this one. So say for example you are trying to you have a 5 by, say for example, a 5 by 3 table, no, let's say, or a 5 by 2 sex, and let's say level of satisfaction. Okay, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, and the scaling is 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 5, 1. This is just for the purposes of demonstration, so that you will see, assuming you will have like this. Okay, that's number of responses. Then when you calculate, then there is a chi-square, and the system will tell you, oops, there's a very strong evidence against the null hypothesis, and the p-value is 0, chi-square is 365, and correlation is zero point 0.5. That is only an example. There are many tools, no, that I can share with you, but for the purposes of because we have limited time, I'll just give one example. Okay, another one is on um, qualitative, the qualitative tool. Say, for example, you wanted to find a, like the question of Ma'am Gina. Let's say there is an open-ended questions. Actually, all you have to do is to just copy all those responses from the students and paste it, and the system will just find a theme for you. No, so of course there are free tools for this, like for in vivo you can use that. There is a free version actually for in vivo, but a limited functions. there is also another there is also another tool that we can use. There is also another tool that we can use as far as qualitative is concerned. No, my tip to you is to just Google, just type qualitative tool. Okay. One example to this is, say for example you wanted to study um, tweets, no, let's say for example their satisfaction about, or what the people talks about COVID over the Twitter or on Twitter, and then the system will just analyze it for you, and then the sentiments are provided. That is my example. I'll show you what's this, because this is also an amazing. I use this tool in my analysis. Here, this is done. Twitter analysis. So for example, I wanted to look at, let's try to look at, I'm sorry, how our Twitter user um, posted, or what are the sentiments of tweets, no, based on tweets. Let's say for example, I type here COVID. All I have to do is to just do that, and then it loads. It will look at all the tweets over Twitter, It will analyze. Let's just wait for a few seconds, and then immediately the sentiment will be available. There you go. So there are greens there, and the topics are pag click nimo, there are topics already, no? You can actually look at that and read it. You can also get the heat map. Let's just close this. Let's just get you can view the heat map of the topic. You can create also tag cloud like this: COVID, vaccine, exam. Oh, how come exam during COVID? There are also word, violence, death, pushing. There is also timeline when they publish, I mean posted. So these are some examples of a tool where you can get a especially for textual analysis. Okay, and then go back to my slides. Okay, then the fourth in tools for proofreading and checking, grammar check. We can use many, no, especially for grammar. We have free. We have we can choose marking mate. If we cannot afford to subscribe to Grammarly, you can go to writing tools. It's very long. It's very long, but I can share. You can actually go to my website, and then you can check. You can get all the links that I shared with you, davemarshall.net. That is a very good and comprehensive um, checker, grammar checker also. You can also use Ginger software. Let me share how it looks like, the writing tools, because that is also very helpful. This is writing tool. All you have to do is to copy and paste your words here. Say for example, I'll copy farewell message. So perhaps I will get this word, just an example. I have not prepared the words. All you have to do is to paste there and then process the text. After processing the text, you will see how it looks like, readable and improved. So these are readability, and you can also go to vocabulary builder. You can also check the text analyzer. It also give you word count and others. There are many that you can use to your utility.org. Okay, and let me stop my share and show another one because yeah, it's not okay. That's the ginger. Hold on, please, and escape because okay, and it's not my slide. It's not tapping. Think I have to. My other slide is okay. And this I'm because I'm getting the link, it's too long. So here the marking, the writing tools and authors. I guess I have it right now. And this one, share screen again. This one. Okay. So say for example, this is the one I'd mentioned to you. This is very user friendly. Oops, I'll copy this, put it here, and then check your paper. Then there you go. Paragraph 1, there is also a report card. Paragraph rating, that's sad for improvement. Basic information, paragraph rating needs a lot of work, paragraph, and so on and so forth. Then our students will actually learn which of the compositions or write-ups the students need to improve. There are also visuals here, the green one, it seems that, and there are corrections and so on. No, this is a very very good tool. I normally require my students before submitting their work to me. I always tell them to run to the writing tools software or online tool. Okay. Doc LV, how many time is left for me? How many minutes? No. Uh,
We
there.
can give you 2 minutes more. Are
Okay,
there more to
okay.
share?
I'll
Interesting. You really exceed the time, but you're sharing interesting and
okay,
yeah,
I'll wrap up.
useful.
I'll just okay. And then that's grammar check. You can also use onlineutility.org. What is this? That is to calculate the readability, such as ARI, automated readability index, the SMOG. What is readability? Many of the journals now, especially online journal, they calculated readability. No, at least the minimum is 12 ang score, because the lower the score, actually the better. That means that our article is readable. Our article is readable by at least grade 12 or in the college level. You can also go into that link. And then this is the one I'd mentioned, the scoring of the readability. There are automated tools that actually can help you find the readability value of your paper. Okay, that's the one. And uh, you can also go to onlineutility.org, and then, or you can go to readabilityformulas.com, free test 6 readability formulas, that's PHP. For plagiarism test, I'd mentioned that already. Grammarly has a subscription fee. Plagiarisma is free. Plagiarism software.net is also free. Duplicchecker.com has a free version, but the free version are actually has limited features into that. Then some advanced tools for writing that you have to consider. I saw many, especially doing some quantity study. They do not know how to insert mga mean symbols, percentage symbols. It's actually easy. It's all in the insert menu. Then you can also add table of contents. One common mistake for students when they do table of contents, they use spacebar, 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 and when we print it, it's not really in line because it will not give you a perfect line, a perfect vertical lines, or a horizontal thing. Use the table of contents feature in Microsoft Word. And then, of course, the footnoting. I still see the conventional way of putting the footnote. They just put at the bottom of the document, but there is actually a footnoting feature of MS Word. Then obviously the word count, you can find it in the review. Some trends, last 3 slides, some trends in publications. I am not sure if you are aware of the so-called journal impact factor. It's now a value of our article. It's now a value to the author, to the article, and to the journal. Please look at that. Citation index also, please look at citation index. Say for example, Dr. Rashon here has a good citation value, no? And then altmetrics, this is a new method now of citations. There are citations that can be taken from social media and some other strategies and strategies in improving our citations and impact factor using the digital tools. This is the one I mentioned to you. Be familiarize yourself about bibliometrics. so that you can understand what's that H index. Why is it that the government is asking us to publish in ISI, Web of Science, Scopus, and etc.? It's all actually about bibliometrics, journal impact factor, citation index, and article level metrics. Okay, so that's the one. And then another one also is I suggest everyone to create an ORCID number. It's a researcher, it's an author's ID that is being used now by many journal in the world. No, and then what else? You can also share your research papers in academia or even at ResearchGate. And that's all that I can share with you. There's so much that I could share, but because of limited time, I think those list of ICT tools and platforms are helpful to start in an action research. Thank you very much.
I need to thank you a lot more than how you just said thank you to us, but thank you to you, Dr. Marshall, because you have actually made it very clear. You have made it very clear that research does not have to be very difficult. It is a little bit much easier than us before when we had to search for everything by hand or just by hand. You know, it was all manual, but it was very skillful from you, and it was also very knowledgeable. We just need to learn how to search and learn also how to determine which ones are actually reliable. And much more so that you have a website where everyone can go and probably benefit some more on top of what was presented tonight. Thank you so much for also helping us with the technological aspects of this webinar. I wouldn't have been able to do anything more than just contacting people who are the experts that are the frontliners of this webinar tonight. But with the help of Dr. Marshall and his staff, thank you so much. And everything has been possible because of your help and your facilitations. At this point, I would like to have the honor of introducing to you Dr. Becky Isanda, who is going to render the webinar synthesis tonight. Dr. Isanda's background is in education. Therefore, she is engaged in learning, teaching, mentoring, and research. These form the core of her daily functions. Her beliefs are summed up in Kuldip Singh's statement: the illiterates of the 21st century will not be people who do not know to read and write, but those who shall not learn, unlearn, and learn. Dr. Isanda is currently a full-time faculty member in Kenyatta University in Kenya in the Department of Early Childhood and Special Needs Education. She has over 25 years experience in education and disability matters. She has deep insights into life, a passion to transform Kenyan youth, and she is also a conference speaker. Dr. Isanda comments on education matters. She is a transformational leader. She is an advocate who, through inclusive education, continues to contribute to equal access for all children. Her primary research interests are in access, equity, policies, disability, instructional technologies, and values in education. She is her country's representative of the Kenyan chapter. Dr. Isanda.
Thank you very much. Good evening or good night, Philippines, and good evening, Kenya. First of all, I want to thank everybody who has been very patient to learn with us. I look at the time, we have 2 to 3 minutes, and I think I'll be good with that, so that we don't tire our audience. And I also think it is not my day. we have learned very, very well. So for me, mine is to wrap up. I've learned a lot, and I also hope our audience has learned a lot. I'll sum up our learning, I'll use the analogy of a rope. There have been strands today. There was the first rope of Dr. Kalumpa, where she introduced us to this collaboration. This is an international collaboration with many partners who have one common goal, to be able to learn together, and especially in teacher education. And today we were purposefully learning about research, an area that all of us should be passionate about. We learned about the importance of educational research, and we have learned from very passionate researchers. We learned from Dr. Eric, who taught us about making action research responsive to educational needs and conditions. Our second strat was Dr. Salmon Days, who presented his research on response to international youth groups to challenge impact by COVID-19 on their learning and lifestyles. We had our third speaker, Dr. Bonia Gina, who presented on becoming, her title was on Becoming Action Researchers. She shared the experiences of student teachers conducting action research in open digital learning context. And we had our last presenter, who was Dr. Davis Marshall, who presented a power experience on ICT tools and platforms and how we can be able to navigate them. I'll wrap up, like I've said, like in a rope. The first strat is a rope that gives us or a format of how we can be able to do research. But even if you have this rope, you cannot be able to use it if you don't go inside and take the strat of you take the first strat of Dr. Eric and you learn the format. He taught us about the format. And then you take Dr. Days, who entered from the last point where Dr. Oration left us, that we need to implement what we teach or what we learn. And here they were, Dr. Salmon and Dr. Gina have presented their research, their findings, their results, they have discussed them, and they have also shared with us their findings. And they have also made us to be able to appreciate research, that even as classroom teachers, we can be able to teach research to our students. We can be part of the research process, and it is exciting to work along with our students. We have been encouraged that we can even be able to journal and document our day-to-day experiences, and that we shouldn't really be afraid of research. And I'm excited today because we have been removed from theoretical research and moved to action research. Many of our researchers lie in libraries where they are gathering dust. But I hope after today, we shall not be afraid, because even Dr. Dave Marshall has brought us excitingly to bring us to remove from the stress we are having of research, of conducting research in manual ways and in the old ways. We can be able to use ICT tools. They're exciting tools. We may not have gotten all of them at a go, but he is willing to share with us, or probably we could arrange another seminar where we can be able to learn more on these tools, so that we are able to present our research in a more current manner. We are not frustrated. We are learning, and we can also be able, another thing we are learning here as educators, we can be able now to transmit this knowledge to our students. But I'm also aware that in our audience are students who have been learning with us, and I hope that they are excited of learning new practices, collaborative practices, and that even the practices being practiced in Philippines and in Norway and in other areas that have, our team presenters have come from, they are experiences that we can adopt, we can learn from, and we could excitedly say that it is also what we are going through. So I would sum up by saying that the importance of educational research requires passion to solve problems that affect educational processes and outcomes. And this includes content requiring specific knowledge and skill that would help guide the research processes to its logical conclusions, which entails making viable recommendations for resolve identified problems based on research evidence adduced through credible methods or methodologies so that we are able to make a valuable contribution in areas of study. Therefore, because this webinar sought to achieve to enhance knowledge and skills in quality problems, in writing and presenting, and also to benchmark with the best practices globally, I hope we've been able to achieve that. Thank you very much. Back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Isanda, for your comprehensive synthesis. You have kindly rolled webinar content into one tangible globe that I hope will be carried back by everyone to respective home bases, by each participant for application and also for sharing with colleagues. I would like to give the closure acknowledgements and announcements at this time. There was a reminder from Dr. LB on the chat that you can actually start your video shots at this time, if you could, on the gallery view or whatever view you would like to do that. Thank you to our webinar content experts, Dr. Orshon, Dr. Diaz, Dr. Bonnier, Dr. Marshall. You gave life to action research according to the demands of this unique time of our educational endeavors. Thank you to our organizers, the Negros Oriental Private Schools Organization, or NOPSO, the Silliman Online University Learning, or SOUL, SOUL, with Dr. Marshall as director, the Philippine-Kenya Education Network, headed by Dr. Bonnier as president, the Korea Council of Overseas Schools, or CORCUS, with Dr. Diaz as president, and with myself as president emerita. The Negros Island Teacher Education Synergy, also led by Dr. Bonnier. Special thanks to the webinar secretariat with Dr. Dave Marshall on the helm. Thank you, Dr. Kalumpang, for your inspiring webinar opener, delivered right from the garage, where the signal was really good. That's how adaptable we are. Thanks again to Dr. Isanda for the synthesis. Indeed, we need to be passionate. That's one of the big factors in our success as educators. Thanks to our lovely hosts, Dr. Leon and Dr. Elvie, both leaders in teacher education. Thanks to all our participants tonight. May I ask Dr. Marshall, Dr. Bonnier, Dr. Elvie, and whoever else is there to please take your shots so that we can actually post those. And those are proof of those that stayed in the webinar all throughout the session. Regarding the certificates, this will be issued only to those that lasted until the end of the webinar. The certificates will be sent individually to each participant that attended the session all the way through via email. So make sure that you actually have my email. And when you email me at anivalis.bp@gmail.com, I would like to request Dr. Elvie to please type that. Please watch for the details of the September 13, 2021. This is my chance to announce this. We have another webinar coming to us on communication, where education stays relevant according to education, culture, and the arts. And that will be posted on the FB page of NOPSO as well. We hope to see you all again soon. And don't worry about anything that's technologically challenging. Tonight, I was praying very hard for no brownouts because sometimes you get them for free by surprise, but nothing like that happened. So thank the Lord, and we would like to close this webinar with a closing prayer. So let's all bow our heads in the Lord's omnipresence with us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, our Creator, Provider, Protector, and Redeemer, thank you for the guidance. Thank you for the skills. Thank you for the knowledge, understanding, the calm, and peace during the webinar. We are done with the session, and our services will continue through the learning tonight. May you continue ruling our lives and enable us to follow the pathways you illumine for us. In your holy name, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Just a reminder, there is the link that is posted on the evaluation form. This is for you to evaluate the action research in action activity today. So you can also claim your certificates. That is shared by Dr. Dave Marshall in our chat box. So may I now request Sir Dave, Dr. Dave's assistant, to make the screenshots for the participants who are still here, so we can prepare and look at your cameras for a better photo opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. Just smile in 3 counts. 3, 2, 1. Shot. On the page 2. In 3, 2, 1. Smile. Next group. In 3, 2, 1. Smile. Another group. Last group. In 3, 2, 1. Smile. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sir Dave.
Thank you very much. And that ends our action research webinar today. I hope you learned a lot. It has been my pleasure to be your co-host. Once again, I'm Dr. Elvie Nasvik, together with my co-host, Dr. Lian, and the main host, Dr. Alice Lavinia. We are now signing off. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a good
everyone.
weekend.
Bye.
Thank you.
Happy weekend.
Thank
Happy
you.
weekend.
Bye-bye.
Hi, sir. Love
Thank you
you.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Sir
Bye.
Alforque. I miss you.
Sir Alice, thank
Thanks,
you.
Ma'am Lavinia.
Thank you. You're
Thank you
welcome.
so
Thank
much,
you.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night, Ma'am Elvie.
Good night.
This
Good night,
webinar.
Lian.
Thank you so
Good
Bye,
much.
night.
friends from
Thank
Kenya.
you so
Alice
much. Thank
and
you
Ma'am
so much.
Thank you so
Elvie.
much.
We appreciate you.
Thank you
So,
so much
Oh,
from North
Shout
Invite
out.
us one again next time.
yes, yes.
Bye.
September.
Mm.
Thanks,
September and then
Clara.
December.
Regards to Dr. Erlene Kalumpang.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Hello, ma'am. Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Until
Thank you.
September.
and
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye,
bye.
ma'am. Bye-bye. God
Bye,
Our
bless.
Bye.
pleasure.
everyone. We're
Bye, Ma'am.
ending.
God
Happy
bless.
weekend.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye. Good
Bye-bye.
evening.